In your own words, describe critical thinking.
How do I define critical thinking? I probably define it a little bit differently than most people. I do believe that perhaps the most important aspect of critical thinking is to analyze a situation objectively. I believe that's very, very important. It's to take things apart and think critically in that sense. And sometimes I think one mistake that some people make is they think critical thinking is to be critical, and they're different. There's some overlap, but they're different. And there are a lot of people that might have a negative spirit as a result, but they don't have any solutions. So critical thinking, it's not just enough to say that's wrong, that's wrong. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. That's maybe part of critical thinking, but part of critical thinking is going beyond that. And objectivity, very, very important, because a lot of people are biased. And a lot of people have an agenda, and really bias to me is almost by definition means you're not thinking critically. You have to take a step back from the situation and look objectively.
Now let us look at a different perspective.
I think it's analysis of an observation or written or oral communication in which we look for what perspective is this person coming from, and I like to look for biases that either the article has.
Can you remember an occasion where critical thinking influenced you to make an important decision?
I remember weighing all the options about whether I should attend graduate school or not. And I remember thinking, I would kind of like to buy a new car. But then I thought, the car is just going to get old and it's going to run down. Whereas if I go to graduate school, that's an investment in myself and it will lead to something else.
In what ways has critical thinking made your life easier?
Well, I tend to be kind of an impulsive person, so it definitely has made it easier for me so that I don't make impulsive bad decisions.
At what point do you think one starts thinking critically?
I think it has to be taught at home. A lot of times I think, it's whether the parents encourage it or not. I also, in my particular case, I was always interested in reality much more than I was in cartoons, even when I was young. It was yay high, my favorite program was the news shows, which is kind of weird. I mean, the cartoons were okay too, but I knew the difference between reality and something that wasn't, and so I kind of thought, why watch something that isn't even taking place? And so I think the news helped me to start thinking critically. I think also our parents, my parents helped me. My parents actually, I'm not an atheist now, I'm a Christian, but my parents were atheists. I was brought up atheist. But they were critically thinking enough, so they would say to me, even though we're atheists, we think people should know the Bible, because it's important just to be a well-rounded person, to be able to communicate with other people. And I look back at that and I think, well, that's critical thinking. And so I think it needs to start in the home. So I think just with some of Piaget's theories in terms of the cognitive development of children, he says at such an age, this happens, at such and such an age, this happens. But now they know actually that if there's an adult available that can teach the children sooner, the children pick up things sooner. Like, for example, something like this, which is really tall, and I don't know, I think this holds something like 24 ounces or something like that. There might be something shorter that holds 25 ounces. And you probably know by Piaget's theories, he would say the children will say this holds more, when in fact the fatter goblet will hold more. But the thing is, what's also been shown is if the parent explains to the child why it is that you can't go by height alone, then the child understands. So that's why I think the parents are really important in helping children to think critically.
How has critical thinking shaped the way you think now?
Well, definitely it is absolutely a part of my life, and I would just say it's the way I think now. So I mentioned earlier that if I'm doing a research project and I have a bunch of research articles in front of me, I will start reading them from the back. I look at the reference list so I can see where the author's coming from, and if what the author's biases are, and if it's like a research study, I always look at the research questions because You can even tell what the inherent biases of the researchers is just by looking at the questions. So, yeah, definitely in my work. And then at home, I'm always weighing options and thinking critically from my home budget to, personal decisions, things like that. So it's definitely part of how I think.